Hey, the sound works. That's fantastic. In an ideal world, I won't spill that. We'll see how that goes. Good morning. As he said, my name is Omar Passons. I tell people now, it's like Passions without the I, if you're trying to figure out my name. I put some information up here in terms of contacting me, and I'm going to try to get this clicker to work correctly. How's everybody doing? Like, this is really good, right? This is like, I was like, so a pretty social guy. My wife is like, come on, we're trying to get to a place, and I want to stop, and I want to talk to everybody. And so I was out in the line, like having conversations with people, kind of just finding out what causes people to come to this thing, to get up at like, I don't know, 7 or whatever time you all woke up, and stand in a long line to fill a room. And the thing that I heard over and over and over again, well, there are two. One was, oh, it's really great to like hang out, meet new people, vibe in a given community. And the other thing was, I really like being inspired. I like the fact that the talks are very inspirational. And I thought to myself, well, shit. I thought to myself, well, great. So now there's a bar I've got to work with, right? So anyway, let's get started. Crafting beer into action, right? Of course I'm going to talk about this. There's a handful of people in the audience here who know me and know how much time I spend tweeting about beer and talking about craft beer and, celebrating this industry. What they don't know, what a lot of people don't know, is I also spend a good deal of time converting this passion of mine into action, into progress, into changing the environment that I live in. And so when they asked me to talk about pioneering, I thought, well, shoot, what do I pioneer? And I thought about it, I said, okay, I got it. I got the thing I'm gonna talk about. So there's not one word on any one of these slides, it's all photographs. And before I can tell you how I pioneered my passion into progress, I gotta tell you a little bit about me. I tell you, if I could find this jacket, like, I want to get one of those like Flava Flav clocks, right? And for Halloween, I want to get this suit, get myself a little afro, because obviously, the hair's not my thing, right? So this is 3-year-old me. I grew up here in San Diego, and I start this story, right? I want you to know who I am so that the rest of the story makes sense. This kid grew up in San Diego County's foster care system. So I was in Claremont when we took this picture. My parents didn't know how clippers worked, so you can see there's not much shape to that hair. But this is my biological mother. Carrie Bell Carter is smiling in this photograph. What you can't see when you look at this photograph is that she was beaten by everybody that was supposed to care for her in Little Rock, Arkansas. She grew up in the segregated South. What you can't see in this photograph is that she can't talk, and she's deaf, and she had mental illness. And so we smiled, and there I am. Like I said, I was a pretty easygoing guy even at 4. What you can't see in this photo is that she couldn't take care of me, and so at 10 months old, I went into our foster care system in San Diego. And I fast forward to my mom. It's okay. Oh, yes. This is my mom on her 84th birthday. This is the woman who raised me, Phyllis Passons, and she's an incredible, incredible woman. She raised me and 100 other foster children in San Diego County. Yeah, right? It's like, every once in a while I'll go and talk to a group of students, little kids, and they'll say, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And they'll say, 2, 5, 8. How many do you have? 115. Like, whoa, no way, how's that possible? Now, it's not like Mother Hubbard, right? We weren't all crammed into a 3-bedroom house in Claremont. But for anybody that knows anything about San Diego's foster care system, what you know, really this is true of all foster care systems, most foster children don't do what I did. I got one house when I was 10 months old, and I never left, which makes me exceedingly lucky. Most foster children are like my foster brothers and sisters. This is some of them, Tony and Stacy and Elizabeth and Maisha. And Maisha's parents were a very stressed out military family who shook her when she was an infant. She would have been like anyone in this room, but for that. Elizabeth and Tony, my mother, Phyllis, the woman I just talked about, took care of a broad swath of people whose parents couldn't, wouldn't, or in their cases, literally ripped their young lives out of what they could have been. I had black brothers and sisters, and white brothers and sisters, and Mexican brothers and sisters, and Filipino brothers and sisters. And the reason that I tell this part of my story as a lead up to pioneering is that it created in me this sort of sense of that we're more alike, more together, more similar than we give ourselves credit for. We have a country that's, I'm not gonna make it political, right? I am in a second, but not right now, right? We have this country that's like, oh gosh, there's so much strife. My wife can't even watch CNN anymore, right? It's like every morning there's some crazy new thing, and it's like, what is going on? But I put this slide in here because it's representative of a part of my life that then jumps to, well, what does it have to do with where we're going that I have all of these different ethnicities and backgrounds and things in my world? It caused in me a passion to want to bring people together. What? I thought you were talking about bringing people together. What's with the beer? Okay, so anybody been to Aloha Mixed Plate in Maui? Right, I see a couple hands in it. Yeah, so it's a few, right? So this is at Aloha Mixed Plate. Regal Beagle, anybody? Mission Hills, right? That's one of their shirts. As I transition to the fun part of this story, the part about actually turning your passion into progress, I put this slide up here because I enjoy drinking beer. I'm fine with that. It's totally cool. There's probably lots of people in here who also enjoy drinking beer. But then I started to think, I bet I could do more with this passion of mine. I live in North Park. Any North Parkers in the house? Anybody? Yeah, excellent. That's good. Just a few. Okay, so here's the thing. The good thing, Liberty Station, right, is turning into a very hip place to be. Hillcrest, Mission Hills, South Park, Golden Hill, like those are my people, right? That's where I feel really, really comfortable. Anyway, so this guy, Greg Cook, he has a Beer Jesus, right? Everybody knows about Greg. The first time I wanted to turn my passion into progress around beer, I thought that there were debates going on several years ago. And everybody knows, you watch a political debate, and it's like the same boring canned BS over and over and over again, right? It's like, oh, no, I gotta stop, and the American people want the thing. It's like, come on. So I said, let's do this. So I had met his regional sales director in the neighborhood at Bluefoot, actually, randomly. And I asked her, I said, Kat, can you introduce me to Greg? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I got Greg Cook to moderate a new style debate. We did debates in a bar or a brewery, serious topics, but the audience got to participate. So yeah, just come. We're gonna talk about real things. We talked about the stadium issue, right? Should we give $1 billion to some billionaire, or whatever the number was gonna be, or do something about the 5,300 people who have to sleep on the streets every day in San Diego County? You know where my vote is on that. But it was a debate, so I wanted to be fair, so I reached out to Greg. I said, Greg, you're exactly the right personality for this. You are a guy who will not take any stuff, and that's what we want. So if somebody starts like pontificating, cut him off. He said, oh, sure, great, happy to do it. So we did a couple of craft beer debates, and it ended up like moving people into an engaged space. I took my passion for craft beer and helped bring people into an education conversation that they wouldn't have had. They wouldn't have felt comfortable going in this place, but oh, I'm actually just having a beer with my spouse or my buddies or whatever. And it was easier for them to participate in an education debate, in a stadium debate. Now, yeah, I had to do it. So I talked about one of these debates, and then I had this other idea. And I said, what if we just made it a point to give everybody who cares about civic issues a place to come? So I started this little thing, actually, a couple of random people on Twitter. We started this thing called Pints Polls. And so every so often, somebody will just put out a hashtag Pints Polls. Let's go to pick a place. During this election cycle, I got to get these off the screen here shortly. I'm sorry. During this election cycle, I thought, there's so much rancor, there's so much, negativity. Let's give people of all, everywhere on the political continuum, a chance where they can have a good, solid conversation, right? Because we don't all agree. I was telling people outside, I can't believe I'm going to say this. One of my best friends, two of them are good, solid lefties like me. One of them voted for Donald Trump. He's my best friend. He's still one of my best friends, but he voted for Donald Trump. I know, right? So it's like, well, are you sure? You want to leave him out? No, I said, it gives me this great window for earnest conversations. It is just true that there are white supremacists that are giddy about our president. That's just true, right? We've seen that over and over again. And anti-Semitics and homophobes. That's just true. But it is also true that there are people who were frustrated at the establishment trying to anoint one candidate. One quick side story about Hillary Clinton. I didn't intend to say this, but I have to say one thing. 40 years ago, when Hillary Clinton got a law degree from the best law school in the entire country, do you know what she did? She didn't take a corner office job making six figures. She didn't go run to the UN or take some fancy Capitol Hill job. She took a job helping 3-year-old me. She took a job helping poor, mostly minority children get access to justice. So I tell you what, I was happy about Bernie's energy. I was happy about Hillary being in the race. But when I tell people, ask me, well, were you a Bernie or a Hillary person? Again, I'm not supposed to be making this political, but what I say is I will never once apologize for my support for Hillary Clinton. 40 years ago, thank you. She helped children when it wasn't fashionable to do so, when she could have done any number of other things. Anyway, back on track. Sorry. Pints and Polls. So, I already talked about creating these stadium debates, right? These craft beer debates. And I said, well, let's get together. This slide that you're looking at, this is, anybody been in the back room at Waypoint? Yeah? So this is the back room at Waypoint. You recognize the mirrors. So I look at this slide, and there are conservatives and independents and moderate Democrats and uber progressives. They've all got beer and they've all got wine and food, right? So they're enjoying themselves. Some of them are tweeting, right? Which is good. By the way, I also have a hashtag. It's Omar the number 4 SD. So if you're tweeting and that sort of thing, by all means, please add that. But so we had this great dialogue, and the two people in the front there, Ashley and Jeff, actually, I guess they bet about who was going to win the election. One of them got a great bottle of bourbon out of that bet, which brings me great sorrow. But the point is that we took this random idea, this passion that I had, and we combined it with technology, a little social media, and some open-mindedness, and created a safe space for people to have a conversation and then potentially do something with that conversation about creating an action based on my passion. Well, she needed a beer after this process because we all know how it ended. And it's, I put this slide in there because I just was like, I felt so bad. I felt so bad when it was all over. But so this is another example. Everybody, there's that space downtown. It's actually not there anymore. Silo at Maker's Quarter. There were all those cool beer events and beanbag tosses and food events and all sorts of mashups. This guy named Ron Troiano, really incredible guy, was really behind that. And I had this idea last year, maybe, or thereabouts. There was a statewide minimum wage increase, which is a good thing. Right? It's good for people that make a little more money. It has some ramifications that need to be worked out from a policy standpoint, but San Diego was massively unaffordable. Any guesses, really quickly? I asked a co-founder earlier, what's the number one issue that the creative community faces in San Diego? Any guesses? Just shout it out. Housing, rent, right? Housing. That's not a creative issue. As it turns out, it is. It's a creative issue. It's an issue in the legal community. It's an issue for social workers and teachers and police. Raise the minimum wage. And I thought, here's a chance for me to use my passion again. Let's do a craft beer conversation with 4 brewery owners. So you've got the owner of Society, Lightning, Jacob from Modern Times, and Curtis from Second Chance. Second Chance just won a gold medal at the Great American Beer Fest a couple weeks ago, which is great. And we had this really great conversation about wages and costs and labor in the craft beer space. And so we put it online, we had a bunch of people show up and have this conversation. And what we didn't do is just say, there's one answer. There's one way to do this. Minimum wage is right in every instance. Increase it. Actually, we do need more. But it was an important conversation. They could say what most people don't realize is when you raise the minimum wage, you also raise payroll tax. Right? Most people that story never gets told. They told it. Jacob said, you know what? I think my employees like being treated like adults. He has unlimited paid time off for his employees. They just became the first or second employee-owned brewery. I think the first in San Diego County, right? What they did was create a space to talk about minimum wage, a topic that divides people in San Diego, some of our business community, that sort of thing, with people from all different backgrounds. I said, that's how I'm going to use this passion that I have. This is the last one. This is another example. So you're looking at a tap list, right? This tap list happens to be in my house. We bought a Craftsman in North Park, gutted it, renovated it. We're like, okay, we'll make an open plan for the kitchen. That's really cool. My wife is really excited. She loves to cook. And we realized, like in the 20s, it was a 1921 house, we realized that like they didn't have shoes in 1921, I guess, because all the closets were like this big. I'm like, there's not enough. I was like, babe, I don't know where you're going to put your stuff because this is not even enough for my shoes. So anyway, the point of that story is we gutted the house and added a beer room. Yes, I added a beer room. I was like, let's take this whole passion thing to the next level, right? So it's a 6-tap system in my backyard. Well, in a room attached to my backyard. We call it the laundry room. Technically, there is a laundry in there. But there's also 6 taps of independent San Diego beer. And last year, there was a shooting in Orlando. And the brewers in San Diego came together and said, we can't do everything. But let's figure out a way to turn our ability to make something that people want into a way to help some of those families who lost loved ones at Pulse. So they've made a beer, All You Need Is Love. And they rolled it out right before Pride. My wife and I, we had a party. None of our friends who are in the LGBT community came. That's okay. Like we all looked around at each other, we're like, oh, this is like, how lame are we that we had a party? Anyway. But here's what we did do, though. All You Need Is Love. I bought the keg, took it out of the Hillcrest Brewing Company. A guy named Austin Copeland is the brewer at Hillcrest Brewing Company. Took his beer, took it home, so we made money to help the folks in Orlando. But then I said, why stop there? I've got this passion for beer. I've got this beer room. I've got a great deck for hosting. Let's actually raise money for Project Sunburst, a program of the LGBT Center here in San Diego. Most people don't know this. LGBT kids make up 9% of the overall population, 40% of the homeless population. That's amazing. So we said, let's do something. There are all these pride parties going on. Everybody's doing a pride party. Let's use that same beer that just led to a positive in one place and replicate it. And so we had friends over. We didn't know, in case any of you are with the ABC, we didn't sell the beer. No need to come knocking on my door. But we did ask people, make a donation, help us raise money for the center. Every donation you goes to will help a homeless LGBT youth in San Diego. And it was great. People came, they had fun. We had a bunch of other San Diego beers, as you can see. And it was this fantastic opportunity to turn my passion for craft beer into progress. And so as I get to the point, right, in this room of a few hundred creative people, it's not about whether you like craft beer. It's not about whether you're a designer or I learned what content management was earlier today, standing in line, developing the PHP of the CSS of the thing. I learned what that was, right? You've got all kinds of skills in this room. You don't have to be a super outgoing person. You don't have to be, like a designer or a lawyer or a doctor or a salesperson or a teacher. We all have these passions. We all have these opportunities to make a difference using our own passion, pioneering how knitting. I have a friend who's way into knitting. Like, she's like 42 like me, like we're peers. And she's not like 70 or 80 or 90, but she's way into knitting. It turns out knitting is a thing, like a really big thing, right? And so that's an example, right? She can take that passion and string together, no pun intended, opportunities for people who want to make progress in that space. When you leave, when you go and do the thing that you do in your daily life, when you move on to talking to your friends later or this weekend or what have you, know that the frustration that many people feel about where we are as a country right now, the frustration we may feel about being downtown and seeing 5,300 people sleep in a space that the federal government says is defined as a place not fit for human habitation. That's the technical government definition of what's happening. When you have that frustration, realize that we can do things right here, right now in San Diego. You are, unfortunately, I'm looking at this demographic, surprisingly not the people who vote. There's an election on June 5th next year, and I'm like looking around going, most people who vote are 60 and up. And so all the people who are worried about housing, worried about rent, right? What's gonna happen if you don't engage the people in your circles? So use your passion. Use the thing that matters to you, whatever that is, to drive change in the 6, 7, 8 people in your immediate circle, in your workspace, in your social circle. It's possible. And I'll end with this. It's the only text for the day. It's a hard thing to be in a public space, right? It's a little nervous, you're in front of people, wherever that happens to be, in your office, your family is watching you, society is watching, the news is watching, whatever it is. When I talk about my passion and pioneering change, and when I decide to stand in front of people and lay myself bare and just be authentic about my little brother who died from complications of AIDS, and I didn't know if I was gonna cry when I talked about that earlier. When you lay yourself bare to be passionate and authentic and real, remember that character really is doing the right thing when nobody is looking. Remember that you have this chance when nobody else is around you to make changes, right? To live your truth and your pure integrity. That's what I'm trying to do every day. That's what I did, as it turns out, randomly with the love of craft beer. And I hope as you leave today, as you go out into the whatever's coming next, that you find yourself engaged in these conversations that will allow you to fundamentally change the things that are important to you, to pioneer your own passion into progress in the things that you care about. So thank you very much, and I'll happily take any questions.